Welcome to the Lumenverse. If you enjoy calming stories that ease your tensions or send you to a peaceful slumber, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap that bell. Now, find a comfortable place, let your thoughts unwind, and prepare to explore the wonders of the Lumenverse in tonight's tale, The Light Beyond the Ridge. Nestled in the farthest corner of the world, where mountains floated like islands above winding rivers, there was a hidden valley called Mistmere. Here silence reigned, broken only by the soft calls of distant birds and the whisper of clouds brushing treetops. A narrow path cut through the valley, winding around ancient trees and mist-shrouded springs. Along it walked two figures. One was young, armored, with golden hair tousled by the wind. The other was cloaked in deep navy robes, with silver streaks in his beard and arcane energy flickering faintly around his fingers. Their footsteps echoed softly against the stone path as they moved, every noise carrying through the silence. "Master Ellerin," the young knight said, his voice low and thoughtful. "How much farther until the ridge?" "Not far, Kale," the older man replied, his voice rich and calm like an old river. "But the journey is more than distance. You'll find that out soon enough." Kale adjusted the sapphire blade at his side. "You always speak in riddles," Ellerin replied with a slight smile. "And yet, you follow," he said. The sky began to soften, the gold fading to rose. The mist that clung to the valley floor shimmered like a dream, swirling around them like a phantom. By twilight, the two travelers reached the ridge, a narrow stone path that ended at a precipice overlooking a ruined castle floating among the clouds. The sanctuary of Lysra. "This was once the heart of the world," Ellerin murmured, "where magic was born." "Where I was born," Kale gazed out at the ruin, feeling the wind tug at his cloak. It whispered secrets against his skin. Kale turned in quiet awe, his gaze moving to Ellerin. "You never told me you came from here." "There is much I haven't told you," Ellerin admitted, his hand rising and the amethyst crystal on his chest pulsing gently. "But you are ready now." The wind shifted, a hush falling over the ancient sanctum. Stone bridges appeared across the floating ruins, connecting the ledge to the sanctuary. Step by step, the two walked across, passing over the still lakes and silent gardens. Stone arches, eroded by years, leaned over wild gardens where moonflowers bloomed in silence. Silver vines crept across forgotten runes carved into the stone. Ellerin halted before a giant obsidian mirror, shattered with time. Ellerin's voice softened, so gentle it was barely audible over the wind. "This place remembers me," he whispered, "and it remembers you." Kale blinked. "Me?" Ellerin turned to him fully now, his gaze more tender than Kale had ever seen. "You were not just chosen by sword," he said. "You were born of light and shadow like this place. Our bond is deeper than student to teacher." A shift in Kale's heart, a quiet warmth he had never felt before. He placed his hand on the mirror and his reflection shimmered yet remained still. And then, his reflection bowed. A soft magic filled the sanctuary, rising like mist over the stones. "Your power's awakening," Ellerin said. "You are the bridge now, between what was and what must come." "But why me?" Kale asked. "Why not you?" Ellerin's eyes glinted with light. "Because I am the last of my time," he said. "Are the first of yours." Above them, stars began to fall, not as fire but like fireflies. The ruined spires slowly mended. The flowers in the garden glowed blue. For a single breathless moment, time itself reversed. The years retreated, healing the ruins like a wave washing away the present. The sanctuary was whole once more. Ellerin placed a warm hand on Kale's shoulder, and the ancient magic passed as memory, as truth, as love. As the first rays of dawn pierced the clouds, the sanctuary shone with new life. "You carry the past in your scars," Ellerin said thoughtfully, his eyes never leaving Kale's. "And I see the future in your eyes." Kale stood alone on the high ridge, yet he was not alone. Ellerin's cloak was draped around his shoulders, a comforting presence. As the sun began to rise, the young knight turned his gaze to the horizon, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The future was beginning, and Kale was ready. "Sleep now, my friend. The world is still turning, but here in Mistmere, all is quiet, all is safe, and a new dawn is coming." Mist lingered like a soft veil over the broken skyline of the forgotten city, coiling around abandoned towers and ivy-spiked monoliths. Somewhere beyond the overgrowth, the distant echoes of a past storm faded and died into silence. And from that silence, a figure emerged, stealthy as a shadow but unyielding as dusk. Noctis Vant emerged from a shattered archway, his blindfolded eyes observing the world with sharp instinct. Despite his lack of sight, Vant navigated the realm with an uncanny ease, deciphering the world through his other senses. He stood amidst what had once been a rooftop garden, now reclaimed by nature with a tender touch. Moss blanketed the stone, soft and yielding beneath his feet. Delicate blue orchids blossomed in cracks of marble, casting a faint glow in the dim light of an overcast sky. The wind carried a gentle sigh through the ivy, making it seem like the earth itself was singing a lullaby. Noct lowered himself to the ground. Crossing his legs in the center of the garden's tranquility, his sword remained sheathed, silent and still. He sat in silence, the voices in the sword falling quiet to honor the moment. The garden's history hummed around him, memories of the woman who once tended it, and her belief in the plant's connection to the earth. These thoughts passed through him like petals caught in the wind. He recalled the words of the woman who had cared for this garden, her wisdom echoing through his mind. Every green thing is a kindness. Even in war, the earth wants to forgive. Noct removed his gloves and touched the moss gently. It was cool and damp under his fingertips, alive. For the first time in weeks, he felt unburdened. As he sat, a broken satellite pierced the clouds above, looking like a silver phantom. Real birds had built their nests in the beams overhead, chirping softly, as if recognizing the sense of peace that surrounded him. For a while, Noct stayed there as the world around him shifted. Dew kissed his shoulders and a leaf found its way into his palm. This silent moment of stillness felt like an eternity. Anti-heroes, warriors, saviors needed moments like this. And in this moment, Noct realized that maybe, just maybe, he deserved it too. Deep in the heart of the hills, there lies a quaint town named Lindenfell. Mist creeps in early and settles in the morning streets, a constant presence. The town is too small to appear on most maps, and so ancient that the trees recall when the roads were dirt and the stars hung closer to the ground. One rainy evening, a stranger appeared in Lindenfell. His attire was all black, but unlike the transient passers-by, the stranger carried an air of permanence. His coat trailed behind him like a veil of shadows, and a long sword, sheathed in dark leather, was strapped across his back. Despite the cloth band obscuring his eyes, the stranger seemed to see everything, moving with sure, steady steps through the rain-slicked cobblestones. In Lindenfell, the newcomer revealed nothing of his identity, but the townspeople noticed the air of age around him. Some claimed he was a monk, or a weary soldier from a distant battle, or a lost artist. They said he spoke with birds, and some even heard the trees murmur in response. Yet not a soul was afraid. The enigmatic stranger settled into the old bookshop on the hill. The owner, an elder named Maeve, found him standing in her garden one night, his fingers gently caressing the wind chimes she thought had grown silent years ago. He spoke softly, his words carried away by the breeze. They still remember the wind. The stranger spent his days exploring Lindenfell, moving silently through the cobbled streets. At the town's core, he paused beneath a golden speckled tree, listening to the leaves that whispered in the wind. He perched by the river's edge, captivated by the frogs' harmonious chorus. And in the cemetery he did not mourn, he paid silent tribute. As night deepened, the stranger would wander Lindenfell's thoroughfares, guided by the flickering glow of lanterns. On occasion, he would pause outside the darkened windows of those who struggled to sleep. With a gentle touch, the light within would lower, not plunging into blackness, but receding into a soothing hush, like a lullaby composed of quietude itself. The stranger was a man of few words, speaking only when addressed. When he did speak, his voice carried a steady, measured tone, like the quiet spaces between stars. During his quiet wanderings, a curious child approached him with the question, "Are you a superhero?" He offered a slight bow and answered simply, "Not really, but I remember them." During the storms, which ravaged the valley with fierce winds, the stranger stood atop the cliffs, cloak rustling like torn velvet in the tempest. With a quiet determination, he watched the horizon as if expecting a visitor that never materialized. As dawn shattered the darkness, the tempest subsided. The valley lay in a tranquil hush, as if the stranger had soothed the weather with his unwavering presence. Then suddenly, the stranger vanished without a trace. No footprints lingered in his wake, nor any sound to mark his departure. Only a single blue orchid bloomed in Maeve's garden, marking the spot where none had grown before. From that moment on, the town of Lindenfell seemed more peaceful, as if the stranger's presence, however temporary, had left a lasting impression, one that, to this day, had eased the town's troubles, if only a little. Soft rain fell again, without the thunderous roar of a storm. It settled over Lindenfell in a quiet, endless rhythm, as if the sky itself were whispering apologies to the earth. In the town of Weatherby, located near the coast where fog lingered like a constant companion, a petite candle shop stood, no larger than a cottage. There was no signage above the door, save for a blue bellflower etched onto the shutters. The scent of molten beeswax danced into the street like a welcome mat of comfort and light. Within the small but cozy candle shop, the stranger created candles with remarkable patience. Each one carried a memory within its waxy surface. On the third Thursday of that month, just as the evening sun caressed the rooftops with golden light, a man entered the shop. The newcomer's coat bore no hint of disarray, despite the dampness from the rain. His boots had left not a trace of mud upon the shop's floor, and despite the blindfold that concealed his eyes, he navigated the shop with an uncanny precision. His attention turned to the shelves, drawn by a keen sense other than sight, his head tilting in quiet contemplation. The man, known as Nacht Vant, moved to the counter and placed his fingers gently on the scarred wood. With a quiet but firm request, he spoke. "I'd like a candle that remembers kindness." Elias, taken aback by the unexpected order, stared at the blindfolded stranger for a moment. Then slowly he nodded. Elias recalled the past, saying, "I made a similar candle once. It was for my wife. She used to read stories to children in the hospital, believing that every word kindled a little light within them." Nacht Vant, with a slight yet graceful tilt of his head, responded softly, "That light still lingers." They sat together, time losing its edge. The candlemaker poured melted wax into molds, mixing it with scents of lavender and sweet birch. As he worked, he whispered not tales of grand adventure but of smaller, quieter moments. The boy leaving sunflowers on his doorstep, the person who fixed his gate without taking credit. With both hands, the blindfolded man, Nacht Vant, accepted the candle. He didn't inquire about the cost. Instead, he ignited the wick there in the dim corner of the shop. A warm glow spread, filling the air with the sense of recollection and rejuvenation. The two sat in comfortable silence, gazing at the dancing flame. Wrapped in vines, a rusted clock tower adorned the abandoned train station. The platform's cracked benches aged with neglect, yet at dusk, just before the sun fully set, the amber lights flickered to life. In reply, the old clock above emitted a deep, solemn chime that echoed through the empty station. The station harbored legends, whispers of a spirit seeking a long-lost loved one. Others believed that if one waited patiently enough, a train would arrive, not to ferry passengers to a destination, but to offer a chance to recover memories that time had buried within. A lone figure appeared on the platform, a man in a long coat, with a blade strapped to his back, his eyes concealed beneath a veil of dark cloth. As he stepped onto the weathered stones, the wind shifted, carrying no whisper of his arrival. The man, Nacht Vant, stood motionless, his hands clasped, attuned to the presence of spirits and the quietness of the station with a profound awareness. Nacht waited patiently, not for the train, but for this moment. Opposite him, perched on the second bench, was a young boy, around 11 or 12 years old, clutching a shoebox in his lap. He still wore his school uniform, although it was summertime. His eyes were rimmed with the aftermath of tears, yet they remained dry. Silence hung heavy, unbroken, until the boy finally found his voice. The boy opened the shoebox slightly, revealing a photograph, a dog collar, and a drawing of a four-legged companion adorned with an endearingly lopsided ear. He murmured softly, "It was my dog," nodded in understanding, without probing or offering explanation. He simply gave a quiet acknowledgement. With a trembling hand, the boy took out the drawing. It depicted a dog with disproportionately long legs and an ear that perpetually drooped. The child whispered, "I thought, if I waited here, she would return." Without a word, the masked man reached inside his cloak and retrieved a small crystal sphere. It gleamed like a captured moonbeam, no larger than a marble. He extended his open palm, offering the enigmatic object to the boy. "What's that?" the boy inquired, his eyes widening. "A memory seed," Nacht Vant answered gently, his voice soft. "It takes root most profoundly where something held immense significance." The child accepted the sphere with gentle reverence, curiosity dancing in his gaze. With a gesture, the faceless man indicated the overgrown lot behind the station, where wildflowers had woven themselves through the forgotten corners. "Bury it there," he said softly. "And when you miss her, come sit with it, Memory hears far better than time ever will." The child nodded, his expression carrying a silent gratitude that transcended words. When the boy looked up again, the man with the masked face had vanished. In the small town of Era Hollow, snowflakes behaved differently. They didn't flurry down like a rush of white, nor did they swirl gently to the ground. Instead, the snow sank with the weightlessness of a whisper. The townspeople remained hushed, barely speaking a word. Instead, they placed candles in windowsills and hung silver bells in every nearby tree, bells that never chimed save for an unseen, ancient presence. The stranger continued on, treading silently beneath the boughs laden with silver bells. None of them danced with the wind, hanging motionless. Then, as he turned onto a narrow trail flanked by two snow-dusted houses, something peculiar occurred. One of the bells emitted the softest chime, like a distant whisper of recognition. There, on a bench beside a cold garden, sat a woman, her trembling hands wrapped in a fraying scarf. She remained still, her gaze fixed upon the snowy ground, oblivious as the scarf slid away. In hushed silence, the masked man came to a halt. The woman didn't raise her eyes, lost in a haze of memory. "She used to sit here, my daughter." Her words were a breath of wistful nostalgia. Before she left, before she forgot how to come home, Noct remained wordless, settling silently onto the bench beside her. They sat in shared silence, watching the snowflakes descend. The woman murmured softly, "I thought, if I sat here long enough, the bells would ring. Maybe she'd hear them." With a tranquil conviction, Noct replied. Startled, the woman turned to him, a mix of disbelief and hope in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Noct carefully exposed a pouch filled with miniature silver threads. They thrummed softly, echoing the sound of a string plucked in the distance. With a tender touch, he removed one of the glistening threads and held it aloft. "This one contains her voice," he whispered, his gloved hand tender as he pressed the silvery thread against the woman's chest, settling it right over her heart. For a fleeting moment, merely a whisper of time, she heard the echo of a beloved voice. A laugh, a song, the tender call of mama from the lips of a girl long gone. The sound danced away like a hushed memory slipping back into slumber. When she looked to where Noct had sat, he was gone. In his place, hanging on the branch, was a singular bell, a silvery snowflake etched onto its surface. Against the cold, silent air, it rang without wind, a musical tribute to the secret that had been shared in this moment. At night, the woman placed a glowing candle in her window, illuminating the night with its gentle light. The next morning, a letter awaited her in her mailbox. Its return address indicated another town. While the signature on it was unmistakably her daughter's handwriting, tales tell that Quiet Reach stands on the edge of a vast forest, marking the boundary between civilization and untamed wilderness. Nestled among towering trees and frosted lakes, Quiet Reach possesses a unique atmosphere where voices are hushed, and lanterns burn not for illumination, but as homages to the past. Here, the snow blankets the ground in deep layers, and the roads are constructed of compacted pine needles and serpentine paths. It is a hidden haven, only found by those destined to discover it. One year, on the eve of the longest night of winter, a stranger appeared in Quiet Reach, dressed in black, his boots leaving no trace in the snow. A blindfold adorned with starlight covered his eyes, but not his acute perception. A sword rested on his back, and though he never brandished it, the villagers knew he wasn't there to wage war. As he moved through the town, he bowed politely in response to greetings, his hands gently brushing the lanterns, as if sensing the stories they held within. During the festival, each family in Quiet Reach crafted a lantern from paper and wood, placing within it a memory, captured in words, illustrations, or whispers, a recollection of a dream or something imagined. As the sun yielded to the night, all the lanterns were carried to the edge of the still mirror lake, then launched onto the serene waters. As the flickering lanterns danced on the surface, they mirrored the twinkling stars above, creating an ethereal, unified sky. This year, however, a boy named Ren stood on the shore, lanternless, for he possessed no memory to contribute. Stood by the lake's edge, his father's absence etched deeply within him. The memory of his voice was slipping away, no matter how intently he clutched onto it. "I'm the only one who forgot," he murmured to his unlit lantern, his voice a trembling hush. "Perhaps I was the one who failed to love enough." Ren felt a gentle hand rest on his shoulder. Turning to face the stranger who stood beside him, he was met with a calm, quiet gaze. There was no smile, just a steady presence. a warm shade that sheltered instead of hiding. I have roamed across memories, Noctvant stated softly. Would you like to borrow one of mine? Puzzled, Wren asked, yours? Noct knelt down and took a small crystal from his coat, placing it in the snow and murmuring whispered words that resonated with the echo of bells. The crystal flickered, then ignited with a gentle glow. Within the crystal, it was not a grand moment that shone forward. Instead, it showcased a simple memory, a moment that would be mundane to many, but to Wren, it held unspeakable significance. The crystal memory depicted a man sitting under an apple tree, laughing warmly as a young boy chased after a fleeing scarf caught in the breeze. The sound of the laugh was a soothing rumble, echoing with a resonance that seemed to touch the very core of Wren. Noct urged, write what you felt. With trembling fingers, he recorded every bit of the poignant recollection. Under the still of the night, Wren's lantern joined the others, floating upon the waters of the lake. As the rest of the illuminated offerings gently faded, his seemed to glow with an unwavering presence. Noctvant departed Quiet Reach at the break of dawn, just before the sun could touch the sky. In his wake, a new lantern was discovered hanging from a towering pine on the edge of the lake, bearing a symbol, a circle pierced by a sword. Within it was a memory, now eternal. There exists a rustic town known as Fernhollow, nestled amidst rolling hills enshrouded in a perpetual mist. The terrain is graced with a velvety carpet of moss, and the trees, like attentive eavesdroppers, incline towards any who might have secrets to share. In the core of the town is an ancient tree that has been affectionately labeled as the Reader Tree. No one remembers its planting, as it seems to have quietly dwelt there since the beginning of all things. It boasts a sturdy trunk expansive enough to shelter 6 people. Children frolicked near its foundations, while elders congregated beside it. In the spring, the tree's floral blooms carried a delicate scent that merged the fragrance of freshly inked paper with the crisp, damp aroma of rainfall. A lone stranger appeared amidst the gentle rain, his gait measured and unhurried. Dressed in black, a blindfold hid his eyes, yet his senses remained acute. The masked man stopped before the legendary Reader Tree, his stance as steady and patient as stone. Despite the damp blindfold, he turned without a falter toward the great tree's hollow knot. In a single fluid gesture, he produced a worn page and tenderly tucked it into the depths of the tree's core. As the man placed the folded page into the tree's core, the roots stirred, coiling inward to reveal a hidden haven known as the library beneath the roots. This clandestine chamber held an untold history, as shelves took the appearance of winding vines that stretched from the tree's foundation. Pulsing with a soft luminescence, the tomes within seemed to cradle memories, each one belonging to individuals who had nowhere else to bestow them. As Noctvant traversed the aisles of the chamber, his purpose was not to peruse the countless tomes within, but to return a particular volume. The title, The Days We Forgot to Forgive, graced the cover of the cloth-wrapped book he gently settled upon a shelf that had materialized as he reached for it. He prepared to take his leave when a soft, tentative voice called out, "Excuse me, are you real?" A girl seemingly on the threshold of adolescence stood nearby, holding a trembling book. It was not clear whether she had followed the roots down, or if the tree had opened particularly for her, as if compelled to do so. Noctvant turned, inclining his head slightly in acknowledgement. He confessed with surprising gentleness, "I'm not sure, but I am here." The young girl lowered her gaze as she shared her revelation. "This book? It holds a section about me, a chapter I did not write myself." Measured steps, Noct closed the distance, his voice a gentle reassurance. "Some stories have a life of their own, and at times they write themselves," he said. The girl's voice wavered slightly as she shared, "It says I'll be okay one day." In response, he offered a slow, solemn nod. "You will," he affirmed firmly. As the girl regarded the book she held, Noct stepped closer and delicately slid a bookmark fashioned from a silvery thread into the pages. It shimmered momentarily, as if the story itself acknowledged the addition, before assuming its place within the book. In the moment the girl looked up from inspecting the bookmark, Noct had already begun his ascent up the spiral of roots, the tree closing behind him without a sound, leaving only its characteristic sense of moss and wind dancing in his wake. Upon the following morning, the people of Fernhollow found themselves greeted by an astonishing sight. The Reader Tree was adorned with new blossoms, taking the form of curled pages. The fragrance that mingled in the air carried a subtle aura of anticipation, as if whispering promises of hope to those who dared to listen. In the bustling city of Greyspire, where towering buildings pierced the heavens and neon lights extinguished the stars, life was lived at a relentless pace. Often, its inhabitants failed to recognize the stillness of others amidst the ceaseless rhythm of urban life. Underneath the canopy of the night sky, a young man stood alone on one of the numerous rooftops that adorned Greyspire's skyline, the lights of the city a blur in his vision. His lips remained silent, his thoughts unknown. The ceaseless rhythm of the urban jungle danced far below, echoing with the sounds of traffic and the weary sighs of countless souls. And yet, despite not longing to plummet, the young man found himself unable to remain steadfast. His thoughts weighed heavily on his weary heart, his emotions frayed. It was then that he discerned a faint sound, neither words nor footsteps but the whisper of a memory, a mere fragment of a forgotten melody that resonated in the air. He turned, his gaze finally drawn away from the dizzying horizon before him, compelled to seek the source of the mysterious sound echoing amongst the high buildings of the city. Standing there, a figure exuded a sense of quiet mystery. A man tall and still, cloaked in black, his form adorned with a sword at his back, and adorned with a blindfold that glimmered softly, resembling the subtle hues of twilight. He did not hasten his movement or raise his voice. Rather, he remained steadfast, gentle as a whisper and silent as a shadow. The boy's widened eyes locked on the man, and he asked, his tone tinged with a mix of curiosity and disbelief, "Are you real?" A gentle tilt of the head revealed a careful curiosity mingled with concern. As Noct responded, his words a tender affirmation, "I am here." The boy's inquiry filled the air. "But why? You don't even know me." In a graceful motion, Noct neared the boy, his hand disappearing into his cloak before withdrawing, revealing a small metallic card emblazoned with a constellation. The stars were not celestial bodies but names, each glimmering faintly within the intricate design. As the young man perched on the precipice, his legs trembling subtly, Noct joined him, their silhouettes framed against the backdrop of the sprawling metropolis. The boy voiced his feelings, confessing his detachment from his own existence, as if an observer to his own life. In response, Noct sat cross-legged beside him, his sword lying as still as the night, its presence a silent guardian. With a gentle conviction, he affirmed, "Tonight, you need not be within your life, simply be beside it." A smooth, dark stone, cool to the touch, was passed to the boy by Noct, his hand gentle and comforting. As the boy held it, he felt a faint pulse, like a heartbeat whispering through the stone. Curiously, the boy inquired, "What is this?" In response, Noct answered softly, "It is a weight, not one to burden you, but rather to remind you that you remain present, that your existence matters even through the pain that may assail you." They sat side by side for a prolonged period, the city's distant hum a hushed soundtrack to their quiet connection. The rooftop was empty now, but the young man noticed something on the ground. The stone he had been given, now bearing a new pattern, a steady flame etched into its surface. He picked it up, running his fingers over the newly carved symbol. The city below remained the same, a sea of lights, a chorus of sounds, but the boy did too. His shoulders were straighter, his breath steadier. Amidst the edge of an ancient forest, where the winding roads fade and map's edge gives way to untouched terrain, lies a tranquil glade. Rumors whisper that this glen appears only to souls who have lost something profoundly, even when grief has fallen into a profound stillness. Those fortunate enough to stumble upon this haven have christened it the Garden of Forgotten Dreams. It is whispered that the wind in this secluded place hums like a gentle lullaby, and the trees respond by bending low, their branches swaying in a silent gesture of mourning. At the heart of the glade, amid twisting vines and silver-touched grasses, lies an untended garden bed, its blooms nameless and unremembered by name. As the sun sank below the horizon, casting the woods in twilight, Noctvant gracefully entered the Garden of Forgotten Dreams. Noctvant moved through the garden with the certainty of a seasoned traveler, his silent footsteps guided by an intuitive path, and his blindfold lightly dusted with the pollen of countless blooms. His sword remained shrouded, prepared not for combat, but for the quiet moments that sought protection. Drawing nearer to the glade's core, he encountered a young girl, kneeling amidst the flora of the Garden of Forgotten Dreams. As Noctvant approached the young girl, he observed her slender form crouched among the soil, hands gently delving into the earth. A notebook lay nearby, filled with sketches, poetry, and the faded wishes of a heart once full of hope. Her head remained bowed, her voice trembling as she confessed, "I wanted to stop wanting. I thought if I buried it, it wouldn't hurt anymore." Softly, Noctvant knelt beside the girl, his words carrying an air of wisdom and peace. "You've come to the right place," he affirmed. Curiosity ignited in the girl's eyes as she inquired, "Really?" His head nodded and he responded in a soothing tone, "Dreams do not perish here, they find respite." From the depths of his cloak, Noct withdrew a diminutive sphere fashioned from glass. Within it, a glowing wisp hovered, its nature neither flame nor smoke, but rather an ephemeral mixture of both memories. Noct shared a moment of understanding, confessing, "I too brought a dream here once. It became too burdensome, too painful to hold on to. Yet, it still deserved a tranquil place to rest." Intrigued, the girl inquired. In response, Noct stood, pointing towards a particular flower that stood tall among the others. Its petals, resembling sheets of parchment edged in silver, seemed to lean toward her in a tender gesture of attention. He answered, "It blossomed." With careful deliberation, the girl gently laid her notebook to rest in the fertile soil, her hands tenderly covering it with a soothing layer of earth. In reply, Noct extended a small, silver watering vessel, containing not water but captured starlight. As she poured the liquid onto the buried book, the ground pulsated once, and from the soil, a slender sprout appeared, trembling slightly, yet vibrant with life. The girl glanced at Noct, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope. "Will it bloom?" she asked. He responded with a firm nod, "In time, in peace." When she looked up again, Noct was already retreating toward the edge of the forest, shadows enveloping him like an unspoken vow. A subtle shift began to unfold within the girl's heart and mind. Returning home, she found her artistic pursuits rekindled, sketching again with the absence of trepidation, and writing once more unburdened by shame. As her pencil glided across the page, or her fingers danced over the keys, she could detect a delicate flicker of heat against her shoulder, whispering gently, "It's all right to dream again."